Got everybody here? Good job. Good. Okay. Welcome to the Tuesday, April 19th Lacey Planning Commission meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order. I'm looking for an approval of the agenda and consent items.
So moved.
Second. Okay.
All those in favor, aye.
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 Opposed? So carries. Alrighty, on to public comments.
Give me a second here to see. Look like we have anybody outside of who's in the room and who is a panelist, so. Go ahead. I don't think we have any public comment.
We have no public comments. Commission members reports. Karen?
Nothing to report.
Nothing. Nothing from me.
I went to the live city council meeting. It was fantastic. It was really here. They were really soon. Anyway, I'll just mention Ken Beasley was given an award and honoring for his community service. They talked about the website, and Troy Wu mentioned the budget and that there will be many amendments. Highlights.
Many amendments.
Yeah, there's some amendments, but this year, due to a lot of various factors, there's more than usual.
And more new. Okay. Alrighty,
No report.
no report.
No report?
No report. Gail?
No report.
All right, we will move on to.
Alan there too.
Oh, Alan, yeah.
No report.
Nope. Sorry about that.
No report. That's all right.
Move on to director's report. Any?
Grant is any of the director's report.
Thank you. Just a couple quick items, just updates on some projects that have been in the pipeline. The hearing examiner held the open record hearing for the Meridian Market and Gas project last week. It's under advisement now, and he'll craft his recommendation to the city council. We'll advertise that date as soon as he renders his recommendation and we get it out. So stay tuned for that. That is the open record hearing on the matter. So the council takes the recommendation under advisement, but the public comment period is closed at this point. I'd like to give a shout out to Samara Seymour, our senior planner. Handled the project very professionally in the hearing. Did a great job of summarizing our codes and presenting the facts to the examiner. So really did a good job, as well as the rest of the development review team. The other hearing we just had was this morning, and Sarah Schelling presented a project to the examiner that's kind of exciting. It's a emergency medical clinic, off-campus medical department, to be located at the corner of Golf Course Road and be Pacific at that point. That's subject to our form-based code. So that was the primary discussion there, but that hearing also went really well, although many fewer public comments. So that's my report.
All right. Does anybody else on the commission have any questions for Grant?
What was the name of the medical clinic that you mentioned, Grant?
It's a multi-care facility. They're the operators. They're referring to it as the off-campus emergency department.
So that's the multi-care that's in the old Capital Medical.
Correct.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
You bet.
All righty. We will move on to new business. Howell Carpenter Road Comprehensive Plan Amendment and Rezone. Project number 2245 on.
Yeah, we actually have,
Maybe you guys want to come
you
over
guys
here?
want to come on over and join us?
You could be Grant that. We won't tell Grant.
I don't mind.
And we pulled together a few slides, but really this is just mostly an introduction at this point. It's a comprehensive plan amendment rezone application. And I might kick it over to you guys to give a little introduction about the project, and I can step in wherever helpful.
Sure. First of all, this is my wife Kathy. The reason you see it as titled as Olympia Hangars is because we own a hangar in Olympia. And we sold one of them. And so this is what you would call a 1031 exchange purchase that we bought. And the property is a 5-acre parcel. It is adjacent to a property that we are currently developing, which is known as Serenity. If you've been on Carpenter, you've probably seen it under development. It's a unique property, Serenity is, and I'll explain a little bit about that, not to get too far into the weeds. But I think it helps to understand the kind of individuals that we are when we do a development. Serenity is 81 units, of which we are, I think, first pioneers of doing a live-work environment at Serenity. So the Serenity will have a total of 6 units that are 1-bedroom or studios that are attached to an office environment. And that is something I don't think anyone else has done. It is a little cutting edge. We're pleased to bring that to the market. It also will have a 600 square foot. We're hoping for a nice coffee shop that is a retail component that goes into that as well. The property adjacent is currently zoned for a maximum of 6 units per acre. And Serenity is currently at a zoning number of plus 20 units per acre, because there is some density bonuses that we were able to get because of the live work environment. Also, we are doing pretty high-end HVAC systems. We're also doing a solar panel set that gives us a little bit more economy as far as how the electrical grid is going to be impacted. Across the street from us is Carpenter Crest, which is a well-established apartment community that's been there. I think there's 120 units there. So we're kind of blending in, if you will, to the community. To the south of us is Aldea Glen, which is a modular home environment. And across the street from that particular facility is the cottages.
No, the park.
The park, which was a high density at the time when it was developed. High density, very efficient use of space. And so we kind of blend right in. This is strictly a zoning change. We're not asking for anything in regards to a development plan. The SEPA information that we filled out was based on it being a zoning change only. The other different impacts that we have is that because of the location, this property, when developed, if it's developed to the level that we want to develop it, is going to be very close for walking distance to St. Martin's College, also to Safeway, to the other corner C-stores that are on Pacific and on Martin Way. Also, there is some other retail environment over in and around by McDonald's and that. And so that lends itself to either somebody to bike or walk to those particular facilities. Also, we have St. Martin's College, which is only less than a half a mile from our site. I think that is speaking a little bit to the demand of what we have for student housing. This project, if developed, would lend itself to helping with student housing. As we know, we have a shortage of housing in this market. The property is currently zoned for, as I said, 6 units per acre, so that would be a total of 30. We're asking for it to be zoned to a maximum number of units of 20. We don't intend to build the maximum number, but we do want to be close to that number. It's a wonderful piece of property. It has some beautiful tall trees on it that we want to preserve. I think that's about it. One other item that I would share with you is that we have moved a Panaboat home that was placed on the adjacent property. We preserved that house that could have been torn down, and I just couldn't do it. So
It's a beautiful, I hope you'll sometime get a chance to see it. You see it there with the windows are boarded up. But it's made of Lincoln logs, just like Lincoln logs. And when we bought it, we were anticipating tearing it down, and we both walked through the door. I grew up in Montana. We had a lot of log homes. We walked through the door and we said, we can't tear this down. It is just, the inside is incredible. And so we're gonna figure out how to make that work in that project.
Ideally, it would become the office for both properties. So if that's something that we can pull off, we would do it. We already know what our obligation would be to re-insulate it, of course, wire and new HVAC and windows and doors and all that. But once it's finished, it will fit into our theme, which we want to build around the trees that we have that are really quite remarkable, some of them, and try to keep those within our development. And as you can see just by the picture, some of them are quite large, and I'd hate to tear them out. And a lot of them, fortunately for us, are on a 10-foot setback environment. So in that setback, we'll be able to preserve that. And that's kind of our goal.
And you might talk a little bit about the access and how we're gonna.
The access is currently, if you're looking at that picture where Carpenter Road is, you'll see two aprons. The one apron would go to the 5-acre parcel. It actually does legally go to the 5-acre parcel now. We would propose to remove that and bring access down to that other apron. We have agreed between the both parties, which of course we have a little control over it, and we've set up an easement. So the access would be through that one apron instead of having another, as you can see, another road access where the other apron is to the south. That doesn't seem to fit very well with what we want to do as far as having ingress and egress. That other apron is very wide, that road's very wide, and that would also then give an opportunity for the live-work environment, because that's right where the live-work is, for those customers coming out of our other apartment community, to make sure that they understand that we have some, let's say there's an insurance agent or a lawyer or somebody that is a small one individual company that is working there, that gives them a little bit more exposure to our property.
I might quickly add that there's approximately 740 acres of moderate density residential within the city limits right now, and around 90% of those have some level of development on them. So as far as a need for this type of zoning, it is out there, and it is consistent with the goals and policy of the comprehensive plan.
So I'll just add that this is, part of our annual slate of comprehensive plan amendments. And so this is the only one that's a applicant initiated amendment. So this is the planning commission's opportunity to hear from the applicant themselves about, why they're seeking the rezone. In this case, it's, I'll say, a very straightforward application, to go from a low density to a moderate density zone. So, I don't think there's a lot of surprises when it comes to this. It's one specific parcel. It's fairly consistent with like Jeff was talking about, the property to the north, which has been developed in an apartment complex, as well as the apartments that are on the west side of Carpenter. And then you mentioned the Park subdivision to the west. I think the one unique situation, you can see it on the map that Hans brought up here, is that you do have the manufactured home subdivision to the south, Aldea Glen, which is an existing low density neighborhood. And so we'll have to do some reaching out to the neighbors there to get their feedback, input, and make them aware. So do you want to talk a little bit about maybe the potential public outreach that we're going to do?
For sure. So part of a rezone, there will be a public notice process where all the adjacent properties are notified about this and invited to provide comments as part of that. And then based on the feedback that we receive, we can make a decision whether or not we want to have maybe a public meeting, or if there's really we gauge it based on the type of feedback, and then we kind of let that drive what level of next steps we're looking for, whether or not we need to have that public meeting or if we can move forward. So it's really dependent on the type of feedback that we do get. And then I will note that there is a approximately 25-foot strip of open space land that does separate this parcel from those parcels to the south. So there is a little bit of already built-in buffer there, so it will transition a little bit more gradually, so it's not a harsh line. But yeah.
On this map, could you show us where you showed us the entrance where that other home was?
So the log home, or sorry,
He had a word name for it.
Apron.
Apron,
Apron,
yeah.
Oh, the apron.
Where's the present apron that you are going to remove?
so I
Right there.
believe that they fall right in here.
Okay.
Yeah, so if we go to this view, you can see there's two different access points. The farther one of the two of them down here is the one that provides access to this parcel. The closer one here is the one that provides access to this parcel. So moving back up, those are right in that zone there.
So when we reconstructed Carpenter Road, when the city redid Carpenter Road, that was maybe 15 years ago now, 10, 15 years ago. We can't legally deny access to an existing piece of property. So because this was an existing piece of property, I think there was an old mobile home on it.
That's what we heard.
Yeah, we had to provide a minimal level of access on the Carpenter Road. We couldn't just say, you have to fly your helicopter on your piece of property. You have to provide access. The only spot that there was access was in that location, because if you look, there is a little triangle that is owned by the Aldea Glen Homeowners Association that's right here. That kind of separates the property from Carpenter, and so there's no easements or anything across that. So it just only has a little bit of an access right here, which is not an access that would suit like a future multifamily residential anything. And so that's what I think Jeff's talking about is consolidating that access point and then bringing it across your existing development and kind of down into that property. Is that what you're thinking? It's also just the way Carpenter Road's kind of configured there is it's on a little bit of a hill on a corner. And so the access is a little tricky there. And so you'll definitely want to be, I think our transportation department will definitely look favorably on consolidating access points there where you could have, two full accesses that are, I don't know, what is that, 5 feet apart? So.
Carpenter is 2 lanes going both ways and a turning lane there as well. Am I right?
I don't believe there's a turn lane there.
No.
No.
It's not.
Your turn lane, partially right. The turn lane is down at our other access point, Ryan.
Okay.
So if you can page, I don't know if you can move that. No. Anyway, it's just to the north.
Like where it says Carpenter Road there to the north. Oh, there we
There
go.
we
Hans
go.
can bring up the Google map on it.
That should do it.
Okay, good.
Okay, so there you go. If you look on down. Okay, so there's where the Panabode used to be.
Mhm.
Okay, and then you see that other access right there.
You can actually drop down in here, I believe. Let's see if we're.
That's fairly recent.
Yeah, so there's the different lanes.
Yeah, there is a turn lane right there.
There's
And
a
then it
center lane.
kind of necks down a little bit.
Yeah, so up this direction, it kind of fades out, but the center turn lane does exist for.
You're gonna need it there, right, for people to be able to turn into that facility
Yeah.
Mhm.
when they're coming off of Marvin.
When they come off of, off of Carpenter.
Yeah, I know, but when they come on Carpenter from Marvin, right?
Yes,
And
they're
head
gonna
south,
turn, they're gonna turn
they're gonna
left,
need to turn across those 2 lanes to get in.
right.
So is that a full access point right now, or will it be like a right in, right out?
Right in, I believe it's gotta be a right in, right out. Because you don't have a turn lane there.
So there's, that answers that. It's gonna be a
Yeah.
right in, right out. So you wouldn't be able to go, what is that, southbound on Carpenter?
Yeah.
To be able to take a left-hand turn into there, it would be a right in, right out.
Okay,
Yeah, I got lost on that, I'm sorry. Right in, right out, so
Yeah,
there's
it's a
a
way-
barrier in between?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that's a way to, that's kind of a transportation term for basically right-hand turns in and out of the site only.
Okay.
So if you went to exit, if you lived there and you went to exit, you could not take a left.
So there currently is a barrier,
There would be, yeah, there would
or
be
there
like
will
a,
be, okay.
something physically in the, you know, a divider that would not allow you to be able to take a left-hand turn.
if you drive your SUV.
And that is the only access to the property, is that right? There's no access internally on those residential streets or whatever they are back there.
I guess the question for the applicant, for Jeff, would you have any internal circulation between the Serenity Apartments that you're constructing now and then this development to the
Well,
south?
we've created an easement that goes through that apron to the edge
Okay.
of the property, so we can, the intent is, easement is, I can't remember how wide, but it's, you know, it's gonna be the width of the roadway that goes into the facility, and then, once you come in, you will take a right turn into the new facility. That's the only way that we can do that
Mhm.
safely. So they're not trying to, you know, they're coming in, then they're turning, as opposed to coming in on that other access point that already exists and then wandering around.
Maybe,
Right, okay.
if somebody, maybe I can answer
Yeah.
or ask this a little differently, if somebody wanted to use the full access point where the turn lane is, with this site, would they be able to do that? Or would the two sites be not connected enough to be able to?
No, they are connected enough, and the plan is for that to happen.
Okay.
But we are going to gate that facility. Both facilities will be gated. So that somebody, for example, if they chose to do that, they'd want to have a fob for both access points.
Mhm.
And we can make that happen.
Okay, so if you had like a moving truck or something like that, somebody
yeah,
could,
sure, of
could
course.
use that full
Right,
access
right,
point.
right,
It may be gated, it may not be public access, which there's no requirement to have public access across
Right.
properties, but if you're a resident, you'd be able to do that.
And the moving van is probably a good example of
Right.
why you'd want to do that.
Okay,
Yeah, I had a question, and this might be a Ryan question, but first I want to say I like hearing about the trees. That sounds wonderful. However, are we in a state, if we're just rezoning, is it really something that is going to be addressed? I know there were places in the publication that it did mention the types of trees that were on the property. But is that actually in the next step? Okay.
It is. Do you want to talk about that, Hans, or do you want me to?
Maybe you go first.
Okay, so, yeah, so that's the next step. That's part of the development review. And, there are a couple things that will apply to this property that will, preserve more trees. One is if it's just a standard development proposal with no increases in its base density or those kinds of things, then it's required to set aside at least 5% in a tree tract. So for a multifamily project, it's 20% open space is the requirement, with a minimum of that, out of that 20%, 5%. So a quarter of that has to be set aside in a tree tract. So that's just, standard. So this zoning request, I think you heard mentioned that their goal is to get to like a 20 unit per acre kind of concept. In order to be able to do that, so we're talking about this being a rezone that would get from 8 to 16 units per acre, so not quite to that 20. In order to get to the 20, they would have to do what's called a planned residential development. And in order to do that, they would have to actually set aside 30% in open space, with again, 5% of that being a tree tract. So that would require even a higher amount of open space dedicated to achieve that bonus density. So there's a couple things that, again, is that next step. And that's something that, after the rezoning process and in the review of the development that will occur, based on the site suitability and the stand of trees and all that stuff, and how they can accomplish the tree retention in and around the development. That's part of the staff review of that as part of the land use application for the permits.
There's a lot of them and they're old, so the more we can keep, the better.
Kind of along those same lines, I know you mentioned the green belt there along the southern edge of the property. Is there an elevation change between I can't visualize that. I know Carpenter Road is kind of a hill there, but between the Aldea Glen development and the property, is there a elevation change? I'm just wondering if those, because it looks like in that picture, there was quite a few trees there. Right along that green belt. Looks like it might just be.
Yeah, I don't know if we're gonna perfectly line up with it. But it's about right in here somewhere, I believe.
The standard, I did do a topo on this property. So we have about a 10-foot difference from front to back.
Oh, okay. So
A council member made that same comment and they were thinking there was a large depression, but that actually is more to the south. And if you had that map up earlier, which was an open space map, and that depression is one street over. So if you drive, when you drive by Aldea Glen, right there.
oh, I see. I was just thinking that might actually be a plus for the Aldea Glen neighborhood. They might, not have as much of an impact if they had that elevation change and all. It looks like, will you be able to keep a lot of those trees that are right along that open space there?
Well, on that open space, we still have a 10-foot setback from our property line as well. Is that correct?
From just the regular building setback?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll have a 10-foot setback. That area will be preserved. And in fact, if we are successful here, we plan on doing a walking path around that whole perimeter, including the Serenity property. It's kind of a feature that we wanted to put in. The more trees that we're able to save safely, not only for the trees, but for the building itself, the better off we are, because the theme would be, it's the lodge. And when you have a lodge, you have some trees.
I mean, in that picture right there, there's a lot of trees there. Obviously, you're not gonna save all of those.
No, we can't possibly save all of them.
But it'd be
But
nice to
we
save
do
them.
have some that we like on those perimeter areas and we can save them. And even for that matter, when we get into the center, I don't have any pictures to show you because we haven't got to that point. But when you get to the center right there, we can save a few to make it look like we really didn't do much to this property. And that's the intent. It's not easy to do because you have a lot of concerns about safety of trees that have been in an area that you have a lot of protection from each tree, protects the other tree.
Right.
When we take some trees out to do that, you do have a concern about losing the root structure on some of the other ones. So you have to be careful about that. And we've done that successfully over at Serenity. We have a pretty good track over there. If you look at it, we were able to preserve quite a few. And in between the property, we have to preserve some too.
So,
Go ahead, Alan.
thank you.
Yeah, so what is the percentage of trees that you are planning on preserving? I don't know if I missed that earlier. I apologize.
I think Ryan answered that for us. If we want the density that we're looking for, it would be 30%.
30% open space,
Open space.
which so overall 5% has to be retained in trees. So that would be, whatever percentage 5 is of 30 has to be retained in
Right.
trees.
That's a very minimal amount. Looking at all these trees, you're talking about 5% or 30% is a small amount. Well, how, as a developer, what is your goal of the total trees right now? How many trees are you planning on preserving or keeping?
Couldn't quite catch that, Alan. You're kind of breaking up.
He's asking specifically how many trees are going to be preserved in the development.
So if you're
excuse
talking about 5% of 30% of open areas, it's only 1.5% of trees to save on a piece of land like that. So I'm curious, what is your goal? Just understanding that You know, some trees depend on each other, some trees are falling into each other. What is your goal to preserve? What is your goal percentage of trees that you wish to preserve?
So before we get too deep here, I'd like to jump in a little bit and just remind the Planning Commission that we're looking at a change of the zoning, the comp plan designation here. And which, you know, we think that this will go forward with the proposal before it, but it doesn't mean it has to. So we need to keep that in mind, that we're flying at a little bit higher level than a project review at this point. So when you get to the decision, you'll need to, you know, find that it makes sense under the policies of the comp plan for that higher density, not because of a development proposal.
Right. Okay.
So, sorry to interrupt.
Forgive me. This is no, it's fine. I'm very good at this. Out of curiosity, how old is the let's say the law that 5% of trees need to be preserved? When was that established? And again, I'm quite ignorant to all of this, so I am looking for some enlightenment, please.
That was a regulation that came about, I'm gonna say probably about 2006 was when the 5% came around.
Okay. Is there any possible, I mean, revising that? I mean, really considering that law itself is 15 years old, or almost 16 years old at this point, with that revision. It really seems like, I understand the need for development. I understand that we need to get people in there. And honestly, the idea of this with like a work at home situation is really appealing. I think that's absolutely ingenious, because so many people are working from home these days. But it seems that we have moved so much, you know, globally, to really aiming to preserve more trees as opposed to be removing as much as we were thinking 10 years ago, 15 years ago, when the idea of global warming wasn't even widely accepted.
So I'll be happy to give a little brief update at the end of this meeting or the next meeting on our participation in the Climate Action Steering Committee and some of those measures that are moving forward, including, you know, we adopted an updated urban forestry management plan and are now moving into the implementation phase as part of a regional solution to this. But I'll be happy to address that at either later today or at the next meeting.
I think that's.
Thank you very much, Brad.
Right, because we're gonna get into things that are not part of what we're doing here. And so, Alan, I think some more education needs to happen on that. I would even imagine that, yeah, that 5%, they're gonna plant trees too. You know, there's all sorts of things I can imagine, because you have to enhance your property.
Well,
And,
right,
you know,
we're not there yet either on that issue. We haven't done that. I can share with you one thing that I think is an honest statement, is that this is currently zoned for 30 houses. If there was truly somebody that chose to build 30 houses on here, there would be a lot more tree removal than we will do, if that makes any sense. Because we have the ability to consolidate footprint by having a 3-story building and potentially one with a parking garage. So every parking garage or parking stall that we do is one that we don't do outside of the surface, on the surface area. We are trying to make this feel like a very open space. That's the intent of this property.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm still very new at this, so I'm still very much learning a lot. So thank you very much.
Yeah, and we'll do some more education, Alan. So we'll make that happen. All righty. Yep.
So can you describe, you don't have an artist rendering of what you're doing or anything, the workspaces? So are you talking like office spaces below, or I didn't quite follow that, and if it was in here, my apologies, I didn't read it.
Right, in the Serenity apartment community that we're building now is 6 live-work units. So they are directly attached. It is a flat unit.
Okay.
So it is a studio or a 1-bedroom that's available for individuals, and directly connected to them is their office environment.
Gotcha, okay.
In addition to that, is a common restroom that's available for those customers. In addition to that is a 600 square foot coffee shop that is on the Serenity property.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
And that's this location right here, just to the north.
And I just had a comment too. So, and I think to Grant's point, making sure I don't go too high a level. I like the changes that you're considering, and I think those are refreshing, but I do want us as a planning commission to remember, it appears to provide housing alternatives. We're only moving to apartment complexes, which I believe are not necessarily the singular direction we should go. I don't know whether this land provides for anything different than that, but I really think we need to ensure future things we approve do something that provides some level of home ownership so people can establish equity, so they can save on their income taxes. We're in tax season. We know how much of a difference that will make as far as your tax bill, which means more you have to spend for your family and to stay afloat and such. So I think we need to continue to look for opportunities to move away from apartments only, because that is not allowing for equity or them to get out of huge tax bills and other things. So I feel that everything we are looking at, and this is big picture, not for this project, and I like some of the things with this project that are doing, but I think we really need to start moving in that direction, and we can't step by step keep ignoring that.
Part of it is that our hope has been that the condo market would help start providing some of that. And there have been some recent changes to state law that had kind of nibbled around the edges a little bit of some of the things that were preventing condos from happening. But it seems that that didn't go far enough to get more kind of condominiums as an option, because we have these types of potential developments that could, not that they're gonna do any condos, but it could be that some multifamily developments could also be condos, and we just don't see that at all. And really, there's a lot of efficiencies in terms of, lower cost of entry to a condo, more managed maintenance, and, not having to worry about replacing your roof and your siding and all those kinds of things for people that are entering into the, the home ownership world that we're just not seeing any of. So it's all, single family, and it's all a starter home, which now a starter home is above $500,000. So we're right there with you. We're trying to do what we can as a city to try to address these things. And there's we have zones that allow for a broad range, like we're talking between 8 and 16 units per acre. So it wouldn't be just apartments. It could also be things like townhomes or other types of uses. It's just where the market's at right now, and the rents that multifamily units are commanding that's what we're seeing is this gone from, kind of the market has just done this massive swing from being single family focused to now it's all multifamily focused, because that's really, because that's where the rents are. And so, yeah, we continue to keep our eyes on those things as well.
And I think the multifamily is misleading, because that isn't necessarily providing for ownership. It's just providing for more dense and I don't know, it just is really apparent to me in tax season where, my mortgage interest makes a difference, and all of these renters don't have any of this, and they never will have any of this if they stay in the rent. And so I think it's really, and that may be a choice for some, but it's sometimes a lack of choice for others, so.
And I just add to that, as someone who's actually looking for a condo and can't find one to purchase, the barriers that Ryan mentioned aren't regulatory. They're more in the legal aspect of liability for the contractors. So, and the Planning Association and cities have been pushing for legislation that would help remove that barrier for years now. And as Ryan mentioned, it's kind of edging closer and closer to being solved, but it is a state fix that needs to happen.
I would add one other point, and that is that apartments do get converted to condominiums, and that is how a lot of condos are produced. Hidden Creek, it's on the west side, was an apartment community converted. Indian Campus, something over on Tumwater that was also a condominium, is now a condominium.
You have to outweigh them.
Yeah.
Was it about 10 years?
There's a
old?
liability that goes along with every condo development. And that liability is, if you will, kind of a seasoning period where the condo, once it's 6 years or 7 years old, then everybody knows what the, if you will, the warts are on the building, and those have been addressed and cleaned up. Also, the other thing is what Ryan was leading up to, is the regulatory complexity of converting to a condo from apartment community has been very onerous. And I think that's getting mitigated a little bit, which will then, in turn, I think you'll see those conversions happen. I can't promise you that ours will do that, but what I can also add to this comment is that the live work apartments, those individuals will be able to use that as a tax deduction.
Yeah, that does happen.
Okay. Any other questions?
Do you want to talk about next steps?
Yeah, so as far as next steps, we're doing an internal review right now of the SEPA, but then also more public facing. We're going to be starting that mailing and letting folks know about the proposed zoning change. And then that's going to start a comment period where we're going to start to receive comments from the neighboring properties. And then based on if there's any common themes in there or any kind of consistent comment that we see, we'll either be able to address that individually or at if it seems to be warranted at a more public meeting style setting where folks have the opportunity to have that discussion and work through those topics. So that's the next period step in the process that we're looking at.
So this will come to the Planning Commission. The next time the Planning Commission will see this is for the public hearing that will be with the annual comp plan amendments, probably in the June timeframe.
Okay.
So we'll do public outreach, as Hans mentioned, between now and then to get the word out. And then the next step will be a public hearing with the Planning Commission. And eventually, as with all of our processes, a recommendation that would go up to the City Council as part of the annual 2022 annual slate of comp plan amendments.
So I'm going to cautiously make the following statement. I personally don't want to experience something that I experienced at the Planning Commission for over at Panorama, where it wasn't worked right and we had a lot of pushback from the community. I'd rather know that ahead of time. So I would really like to hear what, what's being said from that group that's right next door. I can't remember the name of the community.
Aldea Glen.
Yes.
Aldea Glen.
Because if they're not reached out to properly, it's not very fun.
Yeah, and
I second that.
yeah, so what we can do is we can brief you on the results of that outreach. This is an applicant-led process. This isn't the city that's proposing the rezone, so I'll remind you of that. And so sometimes, like with the Panorama example that was a few years back, we're in kind of a difficult position of not necessarily being the proponent of the application. We're in kind of a review and recommendation mode here at the Planning Commission. But that doesn't mean that you don't take the brunt of some of the frustrations and some of the concerns. So we'll certainly provide you with some of that feedback that we're getting early, so you can be expecting that. But having said that, there could be a public hearing that people could not like the proposal.
Sure.
Sure.
I'm game for that, as long as I know that we've asked the questions.
And certainly, I think we've learned a lot from that. And so that's
Yeah.
what Hans is saying.
I'm wanting to pass on this experience to those that will be affected by that experience, which includes all of us, but still, there's a right way to reach out and a wrong way.
So the first step is just to make sure that we contact everybody. And then after that, we're trying to remain as flexible as possible, depending on what that initial feedback is. And we can relay that to you guys as well as part of that process. But based on that, we'll adapt and see if we can match where folks are coming from.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you for a very thoughtful presentation. I hope that you succeed in your project. It looks really different and good.
Thank you all for your time.
Appreciate you. Thanks.
Okay. We are going to move on a presentation, an overview Grant's going to do on the track it permit system.
Stop sharing. I'll stop.
Uh-oh.
It is and it isn't.
Brett, I think you're on mute.
Sorry, Leah, just as Ryan was unsharing, the buttons moved around when I was trying to share. Sorry about that. Okay. So as Ryan kind of introduced, we're getting really excited about the rollout of our new permit tracking system. The one we're using right now is 19 years old, I think. And while it's been a workhorse, it doesn't do everything that a 2022 permitting system would let us do, including a lot of the outreach issues that we were talking about just a little bit earlier on the comp plan amendment. So first, I'd like to share, and I hope you're seeing our new website.
Yeah.
That just rolled out a week and a half ago. It was supposed to be a soft launch, but the website was on definitely its last legs. And when we flipped the switch, it thought the demolition switch was flipped. So we kind of deployed before we were 100% ready. So bear with us as Ryan and Leah and I kind of clean up, our part of that. We realize that there's been a lot of frustration about it, but we're working hard to make sure it all fits together. And honestly, it looks fabulous from a user standpoint. So the reason I brought this up is just to let you know that this is just one piece of a new online service. And I'm going to talk about Track It a little bit, but mostly I'm going to talk to you about eTrack It, which is will be our online permitting portal. So you don't have to come in and give cash to Leah anymore. We do most of our stuff online. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on Track It, but I'll let you see what it kind of looks like from the workspace. It's really, this is kind of the geeky part. So we care about it, and it allows us to do better workflows and better notifications of the reviewers. It allows a lot more flexibility with the documents that we're uploading. And at the same time, we're going to digital plan review and digital permit submissions. So the war on paper that I started 25 years ago and had won in Yelm, I'm now bringing to Lacey, and we're going to fight this battle and go digital. The building crew is working hard to get up to speed on Bluebeam, which will be our reviewing tool, and we're looking forward to it. And if you saw the plans for the River Ridge High School, which was about the size of, speaking of tree retention, that would have been an entire tree tract with those plans. It was just absolutely huge. So the couple things that I think people are most excited about Track It itself is its interface with the inspection modules. So each of the inspectors will have an iPad out in the field, and it links up. You hit an upload button and it synchronizes with the mothership. So as they complete inspections, we can see that right in the office, that it's been approved or disapproved, and any comments that they note. It also helps them plan their day by showing them the quickest route or the shortest route or the time of inspection. So there's a bunch of ways that they can kind of plan out their day right on the iPad. So far that seems to be the coolest, shiniest thing, I think. But the guts of it is going to be just a lot better workflows and hopefully some better and more efficient processes in the permit review. So I'm going to go over to eTrack it though and kind of show you. This is going to be the public facing web interface. And from here, you'll be able to apply for permits, pay your fees. Oh, that's the other thing. Leah, I'm sorry, I forgot. We are going to take, what do you call those things that you purchase things with that doesn't require paper? Credit cards. We're gonna take credit cards for our applications for the first time, and that's really exciting. We're also going to take them over online without even coming in. We'll also be setting up a ACH e-check system as well, and that'll work well for the bigger ticket items like an entire new single-family dwelling, that kind of thing. So on the portal, you'll be able to apply, schedule inspections, see the reviews, and kind of track your approval process. There's two different portals. Beckass is my company name that I've been testing.
Stands for Beck Associates.
Yes. There's a button right over my screen here, so give me a minute. Does that, you can still see that full screen?
Yeah.
So as a member of the public, when you log in with the correct password,
So far, it's been very similar to the Olympia one.
but I hope we did better.
That was a joke, Grant.
Okay. So when you first log on, you go to your dashboard, which brings up all your active permits, active projects, and inspections that you can schedule or could be scheduled in the future. And so this is a single family dwelling permit for a tiny home I applied for earlier today. Didn't click the right thing. I'm on a touchpad, so bear with me. Okay, and I applied for this in the City Hall parking lot. It's a little tiny home, so Rick has someplace to stay when he works too late. And there are all these projects associated with that application. So one moment. And that link's not working, so. Let's see, that one was approved today and paid for. I know people, so it got processed really quickly. And once that did, then I can now schedule all my inspections online. Some of them are unavailable because those are later in the process, so you can't request something that you're not due for. And so that goes straight into the system. Yep, that's me. Want to request that for, yep. And that'll pop up onto that. I always forget my phone number. That'll go right onto the, when the inspectors log in, that'll go right in their workspace. And this, if they're logged in as themselves, that inspection will show up as a task due for them. So they'll know there's something to do for that day. So that's pretty cool. And then this is a pre-submission form that I requested. You can see that it's been received, but they haven't done anything with it yet. Oh, there it is. I'm sorry.
Does it set an appointment?
Does it set an appointment or just a to-do task?
No, it puts it on a task, and then the lead inspector has an opportunity to go through those and reassign them as necessary. So everybody gets, the workload balanced and all that. So it's really the same system we have now, but you don't need a phone, you don't need a email and everything. And there's no data entry on the part of the inspectors or the permit techs. to get that into the system and respond to. So here's what I was seeing that was just below the screen before. This tells the person who's logged in everything that the city sees on their permit application. So this is the pre-submission request to repair a leak over Ashra Cave, our fire inspector's desk. I included an attachment picture of the water damage, and that goes right into the system and can be seen by everybody. There's the property information, all the contacts. It's just me and the owner. There's no fee for a pre-submission meeting. There's no inspections, and there's no reviews yet. But if I go back to that permit and scroll down, instead of trying to screw it up, you'll see there's the permit information. In this case, I'm acting as the contractor and the applicant with my company. I get a kickback that way. The fees show up and then notes that they're all paid. And you would also see if they were due. And all the inspections, and again, you can schedule from here. Here's something new and different though, is they can actually see where they're at in the review process. So these are the different steps that we have to take to assure that a single family dwelling meets all the development standards. So it's, planning has to sign off on it, the plan reviewer, stormwater, and then the intake reviews to make sure that it's complete at the counter. And then the last thing that happens is Public Works sets the fees for their impact statements. So you can see those are all approved, and when they were both submitted and approved again, I know people, so things happen. And then here's the information that I put. It's just a little, Rick just needs a place to, have a cot, so it's only 600 square feet. So we are live with the payment system, so I'm not going to show you that because the city won't let me use their credit card. But you can even pay it online. There's a shopping cart down here. We're going to roll it out with all the over-the-counter permits online. Tree approvals, tree reviews, electric, mechanical, plumbing. But I think we're also going to be able to get new houses running right up at the start. On the land use stuff, it's just going to be pre-submission meetings and tree reviews for the first part. We're also going to use this program to run our rental registration program, which is a program where we require all the rental units to be registered with the city. And there's a fee for that, but if you go through a kind of a crime prevention class with the police department, the fee gets waived. It's really a way for the police to get out there and outreach with the rental community to really work with them to lower the calls for service in the long term. So we'll be using this to manage that process as well. Brian, Leah, have I missed anything?
Grant?
Mhm.
What is are they charging a percentage, a flat percent for using credit card?
3%.
Yeah, 3%. And the vendor that we use, it's kind of nice because we never see that. It goes directly to their account. And so part of the pushback in the past for taking credit cards is that we would have to manage that fee and payment back to the credit card company ourselves. So this is a lot more straightforward for our finance folks. And anything we can do to help them, because they pay us. So we want to make sure they're happy.
What's like the FTE savings on this? Do we think we're gonna save a couple people?
I would frame it another way. We're going to be able to maintain our existing levels of service longer. So there will definitely be some automation and reducing, but we're going to pick that up pretty quickly with things that we just aren't getting done right now. So, but yes, it'll be more efficient.
Yeah, a lot of what Grant's gone through here is stuff that Leah and Cindy do at our front counter every day, and they do it by phone, by hand delivering plans around the office about a lot of those things that just require, somebody to do that. And now we can, put a set of plans as a PDF attachment in this new permit tracking system and, you know, just let somebody know, hey, it's there for your review, rather than having to, you know, have
Move it
those
around.
plans, you know, either in a plan hold somewhere so people can take a look or, you know, go around City Hall. So
And I,
there's
and I- and I love seeing her all the time, but Leah has to haul plans from the front counter to back to the plan reviewer who sits next to me right now, many times a day. So she will definitely have to figure out how to get her steps in.
So contractors who would be using this, for example, would find it more handy and more efficient for them? I mean, they gave input.
Yeah, I think we're probably one of the few jurisdictions, at least of our size, that doesn't already have a system
Oh,
like this. And so the lion's share of contractors are already used to using this system or a similar system. So this is also used by other cities. I think City of Sammamish, City of Bellingham have the same programs that we do exactly. So other cities our size are already using this, and there are other similar ones around that folks are using. And so that's why when it comes to this eTrack portal, our focus is really on kind of the frequent flyers, the electrical or mechanical contractors that are getting a lot of permits over the counter, but also the new single family builders that are building new homes that oftentimes, you know, are doing the same plans over and over again, are used to things like this. So we'll still be able to do whatever we need to at the front counter, helping people, you know, scan documents and put them in if they bring us paper, those kinds of things, you know, not to say that we won't be, you know, at our front counter manning that. Will still, you know, provide really good customer service there, but this will be an option for those people that want to use it.
And it's an effective way to like cut costs for like electrical contractors, plumbers and things
Oh, yeah.
that, because I just, you know, I do a project and I don't know how many times I hear them. Yeah, I'm waiting down at the city hall for this permit, you know, it's gonna be another 2 hours or whatever. So, I mean, it all ends up working through the system in some fashion.
Yeah, and when it came to COVID and when we were all shut down, there was no way for people that had these essential projects to be able to do anything because we had no online portal, right? So we had nothing like this that they could go to. So Cindy and Leah were literally meeting people in the parking lot, you know, or we had a drop box that literally people were just dropping stuff off and we would go out there and pick them up and bring them in the building.
Wipe them off.
Yeah. So we're excited about this. It's been a long process. We started, speaking of COVID, we started a little over 2 years ago. It was March of 2020 when we started this, and it's been a lot of fits and starts, primarily because we've had to do so much of it remote. And we were able to have the company that we have the contract with actually send somebody and we hosted them for like a couple weeks ago to go through some of our bigger issues. And that was the first time in 2 years that we'd actually had like somebody in the room that could help us get through some of these things. So our goal, well, not our goal, but this will happen, is May 11th is our go live date. So we are 3 weeks from tomorrow to turning this thing on. And after having that person here for that week, we're much more confident that, you know, we'll be able to get this thing going. It's not going to be perfect out of the gate, but we know what to do now, and it's functioning as it should. And we were having problems before. Largely, we started this as a cloud-based system. So we didn't host any of the data. It was all going to the cloud, and that became very problematic. And so we had to migrate. Now it's all hosted in a server downstairs. So we've had a number of issues and done some big transitions, and I think we finally got it figured out. So we'll make a big push here towards the end.
Okay,
Nice.
thank you, Grant.
Great job.
I would say we should probably get an update in about 60 days. How it's kind of just a quick 5-minute update.
Yeah.
We probably need to give a huge shout out to Marcy Price, who's lived this in the weeds for the last 2 years and just has done a fabulous job in getting us where we're at, ready to launch. So, and just a great job.
There you go, Marcy, whoever you are. Okay. Communication and announcements, anything for anybody? Our next meeting is May 3rd. Same bat time, same bat station. Maybe we'll see Gail.
I'll be there, I hope.
Okay.
I won't be here.
Oh, somebody's gonna be in
Spain.
Spain.
Yeah, well, you can zoom in.
I'll do-
Yeah.
I'll try.
Okay,
I don't know what
okay.
time. it'll
Okay,
be.
if you're in
3 in the
Spain,
morning,
just in Spain.
I'm gonna be gone too, but I'll try to zoom in if I can. So we'll see.
Anything fun?
California,
I
just, yeah.
Oh, geez.
No, just going down to visit relatives in the Bay Area. Yeah.
That's great. Okay. All right, we are adjourned.
Thank you very much. Good night, everybody.